He froze the moment the plate touched the table. Not from the storm outside, from the taste. Ayla Serena plated her signature dish the way she always did. She is 31, a black woman, the executive chef of the restaurant her husband claims as his own. That morning he'd screamed that the building was his, called the mortgage on her late mother's inheritance a wife's duty, and threatened to replace her. She wore the charcoal chef's jacket, wine-red glasses, her wedding ring still on her hand. Then the storm canceled every reservation but one. One man, last table, booked under a company name, a driver waiting outside. When she stepped out to thank her final guest, she stopped breathing. Kang Ji-hoon. They called him the Quiet One. A three-piece charcoal suit, first button open, and on the left side of his neck, a black dragon climbing toward his jaw. The same dragon, from years ago, from a love she'd buried. He had tasted those flavors before. He knew exactly whose hands made them. Her husband was still upstairs, counting money that wasn't his. The man from her past was sitting in her dining room, and neither of them knew what she was about to put on that table next. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a member and help our channel. Ayla wiped the rim of the plate with one slow pass of her thumb, then held it up to the light. The sear on the short rib caught gold at the edges. Underneath, the jus pooled without breaking. She turned the plate a quarter inch and the whole thing came alive. The char, the gloss, the single blade of pickled scallion laid across the top like a signature. She had cooked these exact flavors once, years ago, in a kitchen the size of a closet, for a man who ate the whole thing in silence, and then set his fork down and looked at her like she had rearranged something inside him. She pushed the memory back where it lived. "Naomi," she said. "Taste." Naomi came off the line, wiping her hands on her black apron, the burn scar on her right forearm catching the overhead light. She took the spoon Ayla offered, dragged it through the jus, and put it in her mouth. Her eyes closed halfway. "Same as always," Naomi said. "That's not a compliment or a complaint. It's a fact." Naomi handed the spoon back. "It's perfect, and you know it's perfect. And you're gonna stand there and find something wrong with it anyway." Ayla was already frowning at the scallion. She nudged it a millimeter to the left. "There she goes," Naomi said, and went back to the line. The kitchen ran hot and clean around them. 6 on the line, prep still coming in through the back, the low roar of the hoods swallowing everything. Ayla moved through it the way she moved through everything. Spine straight, glasses catching the steam, the burgundy frames fogging for half a second every time she leaned over a pot. She thumbed them clear without breaking stride. This was hers, not on paper. On paper, it belonged to Daniel. But every plate that left this pass carried her hands, and everyone in the building knew it, and that knowledge was the only thing she had let herself keep. The service door swung open, and the front-of-house energy changed. She felt it before she heard it, a small drop in the temperature of the room, the way the line stiffened. Daniel. He came through the kitchen the way he always did, like a man touring a factory he'd read about in a magazine. Navy blazer, no tie. That watch he wore turned slightly inward, so people had to ask about it. He clapped a line cook on the shoulder hard enough to make the kid flinch, said something Ayla couldn't hear, laughed at his own joke. "There's my chef," he said, spreading his arms. "We need to talk." She didn't stop plating. "Good morning to you too." The payroll ran short again. She set the plate on the pass and rang the bell. "Table 4, go." A runner took it. Daniel watched it go, with the mild interest of a man watching a stranger's dog. "Ayla." 2 of the dishwashers got paid 4 days late. Marcus almost couldn't make rent. She turned to face him now, the towel still over her shoulder. The account had money. I saw the deposits. So where did it go? Something moved behind his eyes and then smoothed over. He smiled the media smile, the one that had gotten them the magazine spread, the one she used to think meant something. Let's not do this on the floor. Then let's do it in the office. She was already untying the towel. Now works. He didn't want the office. She saw that too. He wanted the kitchen, the audience, the version of him that got to be generous in front of employees. There's a management fee, he said, easy, hands in his pockets. Consulting, brand development. You wouldn't understand the back end, that's not your... To who? To a company. What company? You wouldn't know it. Try me. His jaw set. For half a second the smile slipped, and she saw the thing that lived under it. The thing she had been pretending not to see for 2 years. Then he laughed, short and sharp, and shook his head like she was a child who'd asked why the sky wasn't green. You know what your problem is? He stepped closer. The line pretended not to listen, and listened to everything. You think because you stand at that stove you understand how a business runs. You don't. You cook. That's it. That's the job. The mortgage is under my mother's house. That landed. She watched it land. His eyes cut to the side, to the pass, to anywhere but her. Her mother had left her the house on Fenwick Street. Small, brick, a garden gone wild in the back. When they'd needed capital to open, Daniel had sat at that kitchen table with a lawyer and a stack of paper and told her this was what partners did. This was faith. This was the two of them betting on each other. She had signed. Her mother's house against his restaurant that was supposed to be their restaurant. That mortgage, he said slowly, is a wife's obligation. You put your name to it because you believed in us. You don't get to weaponize it now because you're feeling emotional about payroll. Emotional. You're doing the thing you do. What thing? The thing where you make a number personal. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, performing patience for the line. It's a house. It's a piece of paper. Your mother's dead, Ayla. She doesn't care what the deed says. The kitchen heard it. She felt them hear it. Marcus's hands went still at the sink. Ayla did not raise her voice. That was the thing he never understood about her. The thing that had made him fall for her, and then made him hate her. She got quieter as she got angrier, not louder. Say her name again, she said. In this kitchen, see what happens. For once, he didn't. Someone didn't get paid, Daniel. That's not a feeling. That's math. And I'll handle it. I handle it. That's my job. The parts you don't see. He straightened his blazer. The gesture was so practiced it made her tired. You want to know what I actually do? I keep this whole thing standing, so you get to play with your little garnishes and get your name in a magazine and feel like an artist. Naomi had gone very still at the line. So had the others. The hoods roared over all of it. Ayla set the towel down on the steel, folded, deliberate. Say the rest, she said. There's no rest. There's always a rest with you. Say it. He looked at her for a long moment. And then, because she had pushed, and because pushing him always cost her, he said it. I can replace you. He said it quietly, almost kindly, which was worse. You understand that, right? Any of these guys can learn to plait a rib. I built the brand. The brand isn't you. You're a line on the org chart, and lines get redrawn. The kitchen did not make a sound. Ayla felt it move through her, not loud, not hot, cold. It settled in her hands and made them very still. She had spent 2 years managing the temperature of this man, keeping herself between his moods and the people who worked for her, and she felt the exact moment something in her stopped agreeing to do that. But she also felt the ticket printer chatter to life behind her. First lunch, a table of 6 that had driven 40 minutes for a birthday. Marcus at the sink who needed this job. Naomi, who had followed her here from 2 kitchens ago on the strength of a promise Ayla had made. She would not blow those up to win a fight with a man who wanted the fight more than he wanted to be right. "Get out of my kitchen," she said. The line's about to bury us, and you're standing in the expo lane." Her voice was flat, professional, the voice she used when a fryer caught fire. "Come back when we're closed, and I'll show you the books I keep, the ones that actually add up. Until then, you're in the way." For a second, she thought he might push it. His hand twitched at his side. Then he smiled again, wider this time, and it never touched his eyes. "Sure, chef." He put a spin on the word that turned it into an insult. "Cook your little dinner." He left the way he came, clapping a shoulder on the way out, and the door swung shut behind him, and the whole kitchen exhaled at once. Naomi didn't look up from her cutting board. "You okay? Fire the six-top." Ayla pulled the towel back over her shoulder. 12 minutes on the ribs. Let's move. They moved. For the next 2 hours, she disappeared into the only place that had ever been fully hers, the work. Tickets in, plates out, the clean violence of a good service. She called the line, and the line answered. She caught a broken sauce before it left the pass and had it rebuilt in 90 seconds without raising her voice. She plated the birthday dessert herself and sent a candle out with it, and heard the small, ragged cheer come back through the wall. Somewhere in the middle of it, she plated a single rib for a lone diner at table 9, and when the runner came back, she asked how it went, and the runner said the woman had cried a little, quietly, and said it tasted like something her grandmother used to make. Ayla nodded and moved to the next ticket. That was the whole reason. That was the thing Daniel would never once feel and never once understand, that a plate could reach across a room and touch a stranger's dead grandmother. He thought the food was inventory. She knew it was a hand held out in the dark. When the rush finally broke and the printer went quiet, she stood at the pass and let herself feel her own heartbeat for the first time since Daniel had walked in. Naomi came and leaned on the steel beside her. She'd pulled her navy head wrap tighter. Neither of them said anything for a while. "He's stealing," Naomi said finally. Quiet, so it stayed between them. "I know." Not a fee, not consulting. Naomi turned her head. "Ayla, he's moving money out of here." "I know." "To where?" "I don't know yet." Ayla took her glasses off, wiped them on the corner of her jacket, put them back on. The kitchen came into focus again. "But there's a payment that goes out the last Friday of every month. Even amount, round number. Same company name I've never heard of. And every time it goes out, something else runs short. You've been watching." "I've been watching for 6 months." Naomi took that in. "And the house. The house is collateral." Ayla said it evenly, but her thumb found the plain gold band on her left hand and turned it once around her finger. She wasn't aware she was doing it. "If this place goes under, they don't take his name. They take my mother's kitchen." Naomi was quiet. Then, "Why do you stay?" It was the question, the real one. Not why do you stay married. Naomi had watched that marriage curdle from the Sue's position, had seen every cold dinner and every canceled anniversary. Why do you stay here? Why do you keep cooking his food under his name, in his building, while he bleeds you? Ayla looked out over the kitchen. The line was breaking down their stations, scraping, wrapping, hosing the mats. Marcus was singing something low and off-key at the sink. A prep cook was labeling containers in careful block letters. 22 people. 22 rents. 22 people who came in every day and made something out of nothing because she asked them to, and because she showed them how. "Because it's not his," she said. "It's never been his. He owns the paper. I own the room." She nodded at it. The whole hot, gleaming, breathing thing. "Every person out there works for me. Not for the name on the door. For me. I'm not going to walk out and leave them with him signing their checks." "That's not staying," Naomi said. "That's a hostage situation with better food." Ayla almost smiled. "Maybe. You could walk. Today, you've got the name, You've got the hands. Any place in this city would hand you a kitchen by Friday. And leave everyone here holding a check with his signature on it. Ayla shook her head. You don't leave the people who followed you standing in the rain so you can be dry. That's not a kitchen. That's just cooking. Naomi looked at her a long moment. One day, he's gonna push you somewhere you can't come back from. He's been trying for 2 years. He hasn't found it yet. No. Ayla's thumb found the gold band again, turned it. He hasn't found it yet. He said he could replace you. He can't. I know he can't. Does he know it? He believes it. Which is worse. Ayla pushed off the steel. Her back ached in the old familiar place. A man who thinks the artist is interchangeable will burn the whole gallery down to prove it, so I don't hand him the match. She started her walkthrough, the one she did every afternoon between services. Reach-ins, temps, the line, the notes on tomorrow's prep. She touched every station. She learned the day's problems with her hands. This was how she kept the room hers, not with a title, which she didn't really have, but with attention, which no one could take from her. She stopped at Marcus at the sink. Rent get sorted? He ducked his head. Yeah, chef. Naomi covered me till the check cleared. I'll pay her back. You'll pay me back, and it's not a loan, and we're not talking about it. She set a hand on the edge of the sink. Nobody in this kitchen misses rent because of something that happens in an office you never see. You hear me. That doesn't land on you, that lands on me. Marcus looked at her like she'd said something in another language. In the world he came from, the trouble always rolled downhill and stopped on the smallest person. She'd spent 2 years being the thing that stood in the way of that. It cost her. She let it cost her. Thanks, chef, he said, quiet. Sing something happier. She moved on. At the end of the line, she stopped at the small stainless shelf where she kept her knives. Her own. Carbon steel, handles worn to the shape of her grip, sharpened every morning before anyone else came in. She ran a thumb along the spine of the santoku, not the edge. A habit, a steadying. There was a storm coming that night. She'd seen it on the walk-in. The sky low and green-gray at the edges, the air holding its breath. The kind of night that emptied a dining room. Naomi had already muttered about it, about whether they'd do 10 covers or 40. We'll be dead tonight, Naomi said, reading her. Weather like this, half the book cancels by 5. Then we cook for whoever comes. Even if it's one table? Even if it's one. Ayla slid the knife back into its slot. One table gets the same plate the 6 top got. Same everything. That's the whole job, Naomi. You don't cook for the room that showed up. You cook for the room that trusted you enough to come. Naomi shook her head, but she was smiling now. You should put that on a plate. I'd rather put a rib on a plate. The reservation book sat open on the host stand out front, and through the pass window, Ayla could see the day's names, most of them already crossed out, cancellations rolling in like the tide going out. By 4, only a handful remained. By 5, fewer. She didn't know yet that one name would stay. She didn't know yet that one name would stay. She didn't know yet that one name would stay. In a person. She didn't know a car would be waiting outside in the rain, with its engine running, and a driver who never came in. She didn't know that the man at that last table had eaten her food before, in a closet-sized kitchen, years ago, and had never stopped tasting it. She only knew the storm was coming, and that she would cook for whoever it brought. She tied her apron tighter, checked the ribs one more time, and told the line to set up for dinner. The first cancellation came in over the phone while the line was still lighting burners. Naomi took it, wrote a line through 2 names on the board, and turned the marker over in her fingers. That's the 8 o'clock and the 8:15, she said. Ayla plated a test spoon of jus, tasted, adjusted nothing. We cook for whoever comes. The second call killed the 6 top. The third took a party of 4 that had held the corner banquette for a month. Marcus came in from the alley with rain on his shoulders and said the gutter out back had already given up. Water sheeted off the awning in a rope. Somewhere past the front glass, a car alarm drowned and stopped. By 7, the board had one name left. Naomi stared at it. Everyone bailed but this one. Ayla wiped down her station and looked at the single reservation. It was not a name. It was a company, a string of letters, a holdings group, the kind of booking a corporate card makes when nobody wants to be a person that night. 2 covers, 1 table, held since noon. Table 12, Naomi read. By the window, requested it. Requested it. Ayla repeated it flat, the way she repeated things she planned to think about later. She did not ask who it was. She had learned a long time ago that the guest who books under a shell wants exactly one thing from the dining room, and it is not attention. She sent the front of house down to 2, 1 server, 1 runner. She told the rest of the line to break the mise for a slow night and hold the proteins cold. Then she checked the ribs again, because the ribs were hers, and the ribs did not care about the weather. The man arrived at 7:40. Ayla did not see him come in. She heard it, the front door pulling against the wind, the small commotion of an umbrella that had lost, a server's voice going soft and careful, the way it went for people who tipped without looking. She was elbow deep in a pan sauce when the ticket printed. She tore it off without reading the header. Then she read it. Short rib, jus, scallion, her signature, the plate she had built that morning, the only entree the shell company had ordered, and it had ordered nothing else. No starter, no wine flight, no theater. 1 dish, the exact one. He asked for the chef's plate, the server said, ducking in with the drink order, which was water, still, no ice, said, whatever you'd cook for yourself. Ayla set the pan down. Her hand found the edge of the pass and stayed there a second longer than the motion required. Fire the rib, she said. The kitchen moved. Naomi pulled the portion. Ayla built it herself. She built all 12's plates herself, always had, that was not new, and yet her hands went slower over this one. She laid the meat off the bone. She spooned the jus in a low ring. She set the single blade of pickled scallion across the top at the angle she always used, the angle that made no difference to anyone but her, and she looked at the finished plate the way you look at a photograph you didn't know you still owned. She sent it out. Table 12 got its dish at 7:52. What happened at the table she did not see, but the server saw it and told it later, small and confused, because it was the kind of thing that does not fit into the language servers have. The man had his phone face down and his hands folded when the plate came. He thanked the runner. He waited until she stepped away. He picked up the fork, and then, the server swore to this, he stopped. He did not eat for a full minute. He sat with the first bite lifted halfway and his eyes somewhere past the window, past the rain, past the year, and when he finally brought the fork to his mouth, he closed his eyes like a man taking a pulse. He set the fork down. He pressed 2 fingers to his lips. He breathed out slow through his nose. Then he asked, very quietly, if the chef was in tonight. The server said the chef was always in. He said he'd like to thank her. When she had a moment, no rush, he said it the way people say things they have rehearsed on the drive over. The message came back through the runner, through the pass, to Naomi, who leaned in beside Ayla and repeated it. 12 wants to thank the chef, says no rush. Ayla was already untying nothing, already not reaching for anything, because there was nothing to do. The kitchen was empty of tickets. The storm had cleared her whole night, down to 1 man eating 1 plate. She had every reason to go. She had the time, she had the manners, she had, if she was honest, the small pull of pride that any cook feels when a stranger sends word that the food landed. She wiped her hands on the towel at her waist. Cover me 2 minutes, she told Naomi. You want your glasses straight? Naomi said, and it was a joke, an old one, and Ayla touched the burgundy frames without thinking and gave the ghost of a smile and pushed through the doors into the dining room. The room was dark and nearly empty. The rain had turned the window into a moving wall of gray. Streetlights smeared across it in long runs. Every table sat cleared and folded except one. A single low lamp burned over table 12. The server had lit the candle without being told, because the room felt like it needed one. Ayla crossed the floor with the easy authority she carried everywhere, the walk of a woman who owned the room even when the paper said she didn't. She was 3 steps out when the man began to stand. He rose the way tall men rise in small rooms, unfolding, careful of the space. Charcoal suit, no tie. The lamp caught the side of his throat as he turned toward her. And Ayla stopped. Not slowed, stopped. 1 foot forward, weight caught between steps, the towel still knotted at her hip, because she knew the throat before she knew the face. The dragon climbed the left side of his neck in black ink, coiled, its head resting just under the jaw where it had always rested, in a cramped apartment years and a life ago, when she had traced it once in the dark and asked what it meant, and he had said, later, and later had never come. The candle flame stood straight. Neither of them made it move. She lifted her eyes from the tattoo to the face, and the face finished the sentence the neck had started, the angled jaw, the hooded, quiet eyes, the thin scar crossing one brow, the one she used to be able to find with her thumb in the dark. Older now, filled in at the shoulders, still holding himself like a man who had learned to take up less room than he was owed. Kang Ji-hoon looked back at her and did not pretend he hadn't come for this. Ayla, he said. Her name, not chef, not ma'am. Her name, in the voice she had spent a great deal of effort forgetting, and the effort came apart all at once, quietly, the way a seam gives. She did not answer. He gestured, small, toward the plate, half-eaten, ordered on purpose. I wasn't sure it would be you, he said, until I tasted it. There it was, the thing the whole night had been walking toward. The plate had not been a coincidence, and neither had the shell company, and neither had the last table by the window. He had come to a restaurant with another man's name on the door and ordered the one dish only she could have made, to be certain, before he ever looked at her, that the hands in the kitchen were the hands he remembered. Ayla's throat worked. When she spoke, her voice came level, because level was the only register she trusted. The company on the reservation, she said. That was you. That was me. You booked my last table under a holdings group. I booked a table, he said. I didn't know the storm would clear the rest. She looked past him at the window, at the gray sheeting run, at the smear of a headlight that hadn't moved since she came out. A car at the curb, engine on, a shape in the driver's seat, still, patient, the kind of stillness that is a job. She had heard about that car from the front of house an hour ago and filed it as nothing. Now it sat outside her window, like the period at the end of a sentence she hadn't finished reading. Somebody's waiting for you, she said. He can wait. The candle held. She became aware of her own hands, of the fact that she was holding them still on purpose, which is not the same as them being still. You look well, he said, and it came out wrong for him, too formal, a man reaching for a shelf he couldn't find in the dark. He heard it himself. Something in his jaw moved. That's not, he stopped, started lower. You look like you built something. I did build something. She heard the past tense sit under her own present tense, and hated that he might hear it too. He glanced, once, at the room, the folded tables, the single lamp, the name over the door outside that she knew he had read on the way in, because a man who books a shell company reads the name over the door. His eyes came back to her, and there was a question in them he was too careful to ask on the first minute. Sit, he said instead. 2 minutes. You sent me the plate. Let me thank you for it." Ayla did not sit. She stood in the middle of the empty dining room of a restaurant that was hers in every way but the paper. In her charcoal jacket, the burgundy frames catching the candle, the gold hoop at her ear, and she looked at the one man who had eaten this exact food once before, in silence, in a kitchen so small their knees touched, and had then disappeared so completely that she had built an entire marriage in the crater he left. Her ring caught the light, the wedding band, still on her left hand. She felt it there, the way you feel a splinter you've stopped complaining about. His eyes went to it, just once, fast, and came back up, and told her nothing, which told her everything about how much he had trained himself not to show. "You disappeared," she said. It was not an accusation. It was flatter than an accusation. It was a fact, set down on the table between them like a check. Yes. No letter, no call, nothing. "No," he said, "nothing." She waited for the excuse. The reasons. The apparatus that men bring to the crater to explain the crater. He offered none. He stood there and let the word sit and did not reach for a single thing to soften it, and that, the refusal to dress it up, landed harder than any speech. "Why now?" she said. He was quiet. Outside, the car at the curb sat with its light burning. Inside, the candle held its line, and Naomi's face had appeared at the small window in the kitchen door, watching, not coming out, reading the shape of it from across the room, the way a good Suze reads a burn, before the smell reaches the pass. "I heard about the place," Jihoon said finally. "I read about it, a beat. I wanted to see it with my own eyes." "See it." She let the word turn over. "See me." "Both," he said, and did not lie about it. Ayla's hand rose, without her asking it to, and touched the frame of her glasses, the old tell, the one Naomi teased her about, the one she reached for when the ground moved. She caught herself doing it, and made the hand come down. She would not give him the tell, not this one, not tonight. "You picked a strange night to walk back in," she said. "Everything else in the city canceled." "Then, I'm glad I didn't." He said it simply, no weight loaded on it, and that was worse. She should have thanked him for coming, accepted the compliment on the plate, and gone back through the doors to the safety of the pass, where the ribs did what she told them, and nobody's throat carried a dragon she used to trace in the dark. That was the professional thing. 2 minutes, he'd said. She had given him one. She didn't move. "The scallion," he said, quietly, nodding at the plate. "You still cut it the same way. One blade, across the top." His mouth did something that on another man would have been a smile, and on him was just a loosening. "I used to watch you do that, and think you were showing off." "I was showing off," she said, before she could stop it, and the truth of it, the smallness of it, the way it reached back over the whole ruined distance and touched the kitchen where their knees had touched, sat in the air, and neither of them knew what to do with it. He looked down at the plate then, at the ring of jus gone cool, at the one blade of scallion he had eaten around and left. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped under the level of the room. "The night you cooked this the first time," he said, "you told me a plate could hold a memory better than a photograph." He turned the fork a quarter and set it down square. "You said a photo shows you the face. Food gives you back the whole kitchen." She remembered saying it. She had been 24 and reckless with him and sure of exactly nothing except that. Hearing it come back out of his mouth, aged, kept, carried across whatever years had stood between then and this table, did something to the back of her throat that she refused to let reach her face. "I say a lot of things," she said. "You meant that one." "I meant a lot of them." She held his eyes. That was the problem. For a moment, neither of them moved to fill the quiet. The runner had gone still by the service station. Naomi's face had not left the door window. In the whole dim room, only the two of them and the candle occupied any space at all, and the candle was doing more than either. The window ran with rain. The car outside kept its patient light. And for the length of one breath, standing in the wreck of a fully booked night that the storm had emptied down to the two of them, Ayla Serena forgot the ring on her hand, and the name over her door, and the man whose name it was, forgot all of it, in the exact way she could not afford to forget any of it, and looked at Kang Ji-hoon the way she had looked at him before she learned what leaving cost. Then the front door opened behind him. Not the wind this time. A hand. The umbrella that came through it was folded, expensive, and dry, because whoever held it had come the 12 feet from a car, and not one step further. Ayla did not need to turn to know the walk that came in behind it. She had learned that walk in her own house. Ji-hoon watched her face change and read, in the space of a second, that the night had just stopped being about the two of them. She kept her eyes on him one moment longer, long enough to say "lo" meant only for him, in a voice that had gone back to level and would stay there now. "You shouldn't have come, Ji-hoon." He held her look. Whatever he heard in it, he did not flinch from it. "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm here." Behind him, unhurried, shaking rain off a coat he hadn't earned in this room, Daniel Mercer stepped onto the floor of the restaurant with his name on it and said, to no one, to everyone, in the loud, warm voice he used when he wanted the room to know he'd arrived, "Well, somebody's still open." Daniel let the door fall shut behind him and crossed the floor like he owned the tile. He did own it, on paper. He shook his coat once more, flicked water from his sleeve onto a chair he never sat in, and grinned at the single-lit table by the window. "Storm out there, and you're serving the last man in the city." He laughed at his own line. That's dedication. Ayla stayed where she was, 3 steps from table 12, her hand still at her side. She had not moved toward Daniel, and she had not moved away. The candle the waiter had lit threw her shadow long across the floor. Daniel finally clocked the guest. His grin held, but his eyes did the quick math he always did with a stranger in a good suit. The watch, the shoes, the car she could see idling past the glass with its one still driver. He decided the man was worth a performance. "Evening," Daniel said, warm, wide. He stuck out a hand. "Daniel Mercer, this is mine. Sorry we kept you on a night like this. I'd have told the kitchen to send something special." He tipped his head at Ayla without looking at her. The help gets stubborn about the reservation book. The word landed in the room and sat there. Ji-hoon did not take the hand. He looked at it, once, the way a man looks at a thing left on a chair, and then he looked back at Ayla. Daniel's hand hung in the air a beat too long. He pulled it back and turned it into a gesture at the dining room, smooth, like he'd meant to all along. "Kitchen help," Ayla said. "Quiet." She turned to face her husband fully now. "That's the word you want to use. In front of a guest." "Come on." Daniel's smile thinned at the edges. "You know what I mean." "I'm the executive chef of this restaurant." She said it flat, no heat, a fact laid on a counter. "I built the menu. I hired the line. I cooked the plate he's eating." Daniel laughed again, and this time the laugh was for the guest. A "let me tell you" laugh. A "we're both reasonable men" laugh. "She cooks. Sure. She's good. I'll give her that." He said it like a review. "But the name on the lease is mine. The name in the magazine's mine. People come for the room's the brand." He spread his hands. "I built the brand. You built nothing." The words were out before Ayla weighed them, and she did not take them back. The waiter by the service station went very still. In the small window of the kitchen door, Naomi's face did not move. Daniel's jaw worked. He came closer, dropped his voice to the register he thought was private, the one that carried anyway. "Don't do this here." A glance at Ji-hoon. "Not tonight. I came for the folder in the office and I'm gone. Cook, smile, we talk at home. There's a folder you need at 10 on a Tuesday, in a storm." Ayla's head tilted. "Who told you to come?" Something crossed Daniel's face and he covered it too slow. Vanessa told you to come, Ayla said. He didn't answer. That was the answer. For 6 months, she had watched the money leave on the last Friday of every month, a round number to a company she'd never heard of, and every month, a check to a dishwasher landed short. She had held the shape of it in her chest without the name of it. Now a name walked in the front of her own head and set itself down beside the number, and the two of them fit. Say it, Ayla said. Daniel's tongue pushed at the inside of his cheek. He looked at the guest, at the waiter, at the woman he'd married, and some cheap calculation in him decided the truth was cheaper than the fight. He shrugged, almost relieved, like a man setting down a bag. Fine, he spread his arms. Vanessa handles the brand, image, press, the vision. Yes, we're, a small laugh, disbelieving, at himself. We've gotten close. So what? You want the truth in front of your customer? There it is. She's the reason there's a magazine at all. She's the reason anyone knows this place exists. How long? Ayla said. Does it matter? How long? He didn't give a number. He gave a face. Bored, caught, unbothered, and that was worse than a number. Ayla felt the thing that had been cooling in her all day, since the morning, since he'd called her mother's mortgage an obligation, go the rest of the way cold. It didn't shatter, it set, like fat left off the heat, solid and no longer moving. You should thank me, honestly. Daniel found his footing in the silence and mistook it for a floor. You'd be nowhere. Some line cook in somebody else's kitchen. I gave you a stage. I put your food in front of people who matter. You want to stand here and tell a man in a $5,000 suit that you built it? Baby. He shook his head, almost gentle, almost sad for her. You cook. I made you a chef. Ayla looked at him a long moment. Then she reached up and touched the arm of her glasses, the small betrayal her hand always made when something hit bone. And Naomi, watching through the door, saw it and knew that whatever came next had already been decided. Ayla brought her hand down. She held her husband's eyes, and she worked the ring off her left hand. It came off harder than she expected. She had worn it 4 years, and her knuckle had grown around it, and it fought her for a second, and she twisted it once, twice, and it came free. She set it on the white cloth of table 12, next to the water glass with no ice, in the ring of light the candle made. It made a small sound on the plate rail, not much, enough. I'm not going home, Ayla said. Daniel stared at the ring like it was a card someone had played wrong. You're upset. I'm not going home, Daniel. Not tonight. Not after. She was very calm now, and the calm frightened the waiter more than shouting would have. You can have the folder, you can have the office, you can have Vanessa and the vision and the magazine. I'm done sleeping in your house. For a moment, Daniel didn't have a script. She watched him reach for one. He found the cruel one. He always did. Okay, he said, and the warmth was gone, and what was under it had always been under it. Okay, walk out, but be smart for 1 second. He stepped in, close enough that she smelled the rain and the whiskey he'd had before he came. You walk with nothing. The lease is mine. The name is mine. The recipes are the restaurant's, and the restaurant is mine. You cooked them on my clock, in my kitchen. That's the law. The staff work for me. That woman in the doorway, he didn't look at Naomi, but he knew she was there. She works for me. Your little line. Your birthday 6 tops. Mine. The house, Ayla said. On Fenwick, my mother's house. Collateral. He smiled. You signed it. When this place needed the money, whose house went in? Yours. So you leave, and if I decide this place is done, that goes too. You'll have your knives and the coat on your back, and you'll go be somebody's line cook again. And in 6 months, nobody will remember your name, because your name was never on anything. He straightened, pleased with the architecture of it. That's the deal, Ayla. That was always the deal. So cool down. Come home. Cook tomorrow like a smart woman, and we forget tonight. Ayla did not cool down and did not come home and did not forget. But she also did not, for one long breath, have an answer to the law he'd just recited, because the ugly part of it was true. She had signed. Her mother's house was in the paper. The recipes were cooked on his clock. She stood in the room she had built, and every load-bearing wall of it belonged to the man in the wet blazer, and they both knew it, and the knowing filled the space between them like water filling a hold. That was when the chair at table 12 moved. Ji-hoon stood. He didn't hurry. He set his napkin beside the plate. The plate scraped nearly clean, the single blade of scallion gone, and he buttoned the middle button of his jacket, and the dragon at his throat caught the candlelight as he came around the table. He stopped an arm's length from Daniel, and he was taller, and he was calm in a way that made Daniel's calm look like noise. "You said the restaurant is yours," Ji-hoon said. His English was precise, unhurried. The lease, the name, the equipment, the recipes, as you put it, the clock, all of it. One owner. Daniel's chin came up, every inch. "Then sell it to me." The room changed temperature. Daniel blinked. He looked at Ji-hoon, at Ayla, back at Ji-hoon, hunting the joke. "Excuse me? You have a thing you say is worth money and a woman you're happy to lose." Ji-hoon's voice stayed level. "I'm a man with money who wants the thing. Sell it to me, tonight." "This is..." Daniel let out a short laugh, but it came out wrong, too high. "You don't just... A restaurant isn't a... You can't buy a restaurant standing in it in the rain." "I can buy anything standing anywhere." Ji-hoon said it without weight, which is what gave it weight. The lease, the name, the fixtures, the accounts, every document that makes it yours, and every document that runs it. He paused on the last word half a second, and only Ayla, maybe, caught the edge under it. "You bring all of it to a table tonight, and I'll pay you 3 times what it's worth." Silence. Daniel's mouth opened. Money did a thing to his face that the truth about Vanessa hadn't. The bored contempt slid off and greed climbed up behind it, naked, fast. 3 times, he said the number to himself. Then, quickly, catching himself, playing it slow, 3 times what it's worth is... That's not a number you throw around. You don't even know what it's worth. "I know what you owe," Ji-hoon said. Daniel went still. "I know a man who takes a management fee out of his own kitchen every last Friday and can't make payroll, knows exactly what he owes." Ji-hoon watched him. "I'm offering you a door, cash tonight. You walk out clean. You go wherever you're planning to go." A flick of the eyes, so brief, toward the front window where a creme and ice gray silhouette had not yet appeared, but was implied in every word Daniel had said, "With more than you have now, and no restaurant tying you to any of it. Or you keep arguing with your wife in front of your last customer, and I finish my water and drive home." Daniel wet his lips. Why? It was the first honest thing he'd said all night, and he said it to Ji-hoon, not to Ayla. Why? Why this man? Why this room? Why tonight? Why her food? For 1 second the whole thing hung on the answer, and Ayla found she had stopped breathing, and in the kitchen door Naomi's hand had come up flat against the wood. Ji-hoon did not look at Ayla when he answered. That was the mercy of it, or the cruelty. She couldn't tell yet. "Because I ate here tonight," he said, "and I decided I wanted it." It was not the truth. Ayla knew it wasn't the truth, the way you know a stock is undersalted. Not from any one thing, from the whole of it. But it was a truth Daniel could hold, a rich man's whim, a story that flattered the food and cost Daniel nothing to believe, and Daniel took it because taking it made him 3 times richer. "Lawyers!" Daniel said. His voice had changed. It had the bright, greedy speed of a man already spending. "You're serious! You want it done tonight. I'd need my attorney, you'd need yours. We can't just. My attorneys are 20 minutes out, Ji-hoon said. They've been in a car since I sat down. Ayla turned to look at him then. He had ordered the plate to be sure it was her hands. He had booked the table under a shell so she wouldn't run, and his lawyers had been idling in the storm since before she'd walked out of the kitchen to thank him. He hadn't come to eat. He had come with a door already built, and he'd waited to see whether she'd open it herself before he set it in the wall. She didn't know yet whether that was rescue or something colder, and she hated that she couldn't tell, and she filed the question where she filed everything she couldn't plate yet, to the side, on low heat, for later. Daniel didn't notice any of it. Daniel was already halfway to the office, patting his blazer for a phone. The folder, he said, half to himself. I'll pull everything. The lease, there's a binder, the accounts, the operating docs, all of it's in the. He stopped, turned, pointed at Ji-hoon with the phone, like a man closing on a deal at a golf course. 3 times. You said 3 times. That's the number. You're not walking it back when the papers come out. Bring everything that makes it yours, Ji-hoon said. All of it. And I won't walk back a cent. Daniel grinned. The media grin. The wide, warm, empty one. And it was pointed at the wrong thing. At a rescue he thought was his. And he went for the office fast. Already dialing. Already gone from the marriage he'd ended 40 seconds ago, and hadn't even felt close behind him. The dining room held 4 people and a candle. Ayla stood over the ring she'd set on the cloth. She did not pick it back up. Ji-hoon stood where he was, a careful distance kept, his hands loose at his sides, waiting. Not for Daniel, she understood. For her. The waiter breathed. In the kitchen door, Naomi finally pushed it open a hand's width. Enough to be seen. Enough to say, I'm here. Say the word. And Ayla lifted 2 fingers off her thigh. Not yet. Stay. The oldest signal between them. You bought my kitchen out from under my husband, Ayla said. She kept her eyes on the ring. In the time it takes to clear a plate. I offered, Ji-hoon said. He hasn't signed. He'll sign. She knew Daniel. 3 times a number was the only faith he had. He'll sign so fast the ink won't dry. Yes. She raised her head. The candle sat between them, low, and past it, the black car waited at the curb with its one still driver who never came in, and past that, the rain came down on the street, with both their names hidden inside shell companies. Neither of them had said out loud. And then it's yours, Ayla said. The lease, the name, the line, Naomi. Her voice didn't break on the name, but it bent. Marcus, the birthday 6 tops. My mother's house is his collateral, so when he sells, that comes loose too. You'll be holding the paper on Fenwick before midnight. Everything he just listed, like it was his. It'll be yours instead. Ji-hoon looked at her, and for the first time all night something moved under the calm, something that had waited a long time to move. No, he said. Down the hall the office door banged open. Daniel's voice came bright and fast through it, into a phone, saying the word. Buyer. Saying the word. Tonight. Saying a number 3 times its worth to a lawyer being pulled out of bed. No, Ji-hoon said again, quieter. Only for her, over the candle, over the ring she still hadn't touched. Ayla, it was never going to be mine. The words landed and stayed there, between them, over the small flame the waiter had lit an hour ago, and never come back to snuff. Ayla let them. She had learned long ago that the fastest way to lose ground was to fill a silence you didn't understand. Down the corridor, a drawer slammed. Then another. Daniel was tearing through the office like a man late for a plane. He believes you, she said. He believes the number. Ji-hoon glanced toward the sound. The number is easier to believe than the truth. She almost asked what the truth was. She didn't. Marcus appeared at the swinging door instead, dish towel over one shoulder, eyes wide at the empty dining room and the two people standing in it who did not belong to the same world. "Chef, you want me to kill the Hood fans?" "Leave them," Ayla said. "Somebody's still eating." She looked at the near-clean plate on table 12 when she said it, and Ji-hoon almost smiled, and she hated that she'd made him almost smile. Headlights swept the front glass, a black sedan, then a second behind it, pulling to the curb behind the car that had waited all night with its driver who never came in. Doors opened in the rain. 3 people got out with umbrellas and hard-sided cases, and they moved like people who bill for the walk from the car. 20 minutes, Ji-hoon had said, and it had been 20 minutes, and Ayla understood that everything about this man arrived exactly when he said it would. That was not comfort. That was the opposite of comfort. Daniel came back down the corridor with the binder under his arm, and his phone against his ear, and his blazer half off one shoulder. "They're here? Already?" He saw the lawyers at the door and hung up without saying goodbye. Okay, let them in." Nobody moved to let them in. Ji-hoon crossed to the door and opened it himself. They took the 6-top by the banquette, the one that had been a party of 4 before the storm ate the reservation. Cases snapped open. A laptop, a portable printer that hummed and blinked, a stack of blue-backed pages already drafted. Ayla watched a woman in a gray suit lay documents in 3 neat rows, like a dealer setting a table, and she realized the paperwork had been written before Ji-hoon ever tasted the short rib. Written on a guess. Written on the chance that she'd be exactly here. "Sit," the gray suit lawyer told Daniel. Not unkindly, the way you'd tell a dog. Daniel sat. He set the binder down and opened it, and started pulling pages. Eager now, a boy emptying his pockets to prove he had enough for the candy. Lease, the deed language, the equipment schedule, the vendor contracts, the accounts. He stacked them and slid them across, and kept talking, narrating his own giveaway, and no one at the table needed him to. Ayla stood at the pass where she had stood 10,000 nights and watched her restaurant get counted. "The operating file, too," the lawyer said. "Everything that runs it. Payroll records, the management services agreement, the vendor of record for the monthly fee." Daniel's hand paused half an inch above the binder. Ayla saw it. Ji-hoon saw it. The pause lasted 1 second, and then Daniel laughed it off and said, "Sure, it's all in here," and kept pulling, and Ayla filed that second away, in the place where she kept the things she'd need later. "How long will this take?" Daniel asked. "As long as it takes to read what you signed your name to," the lawyer said, and turned the first page. Ji-hoon touched Ayla's elbow. Once, barely. "You don't have to watch this. I built it," she said. "I'll watch it end." But she didn't stay at the table. She walked to the window instead, and stood where the streetlight cut through the rain in long silver lines, and she looked at nothing, and she felt him come and stand a careful arm's length away. For a while neither of them said anything. Behind them, pages turned. A printer woke and spat 2 sheets. Someone asked Daniel for a second form of ID, and he patted his blazer and produced a passport of all things from the inside pocket, and Ayla noticed that too. A man who carried his passport to a dinner service carried it because he'd been thinking about airports. "He's leaving," she said quietly. "Tonight isn't a sale to him. It's a ticket." "I know. You're paying triple for a ticket you could have let him buy himself." "I'm paying triple," Ji-hoon said, "so that when he leaves, he can't take anything with him that matters." She turned her head. His profile was cut sharp by the streetlight, the line of the dragon rising out of his collar into shadow. He was watching the table, not her. "Why are you really here, Ji-hoon?" He was quiet long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "You want the honest version or the one that lets you keep hating me?" "I haven't decided which I can afford." That got the ghost of something across his mouth, gone as fast as it came. He put his hands in his pockets. When he spoke, it was low, under the sound of the lawyers, meant to reach exactly as far as her and no further. I didn't build this, any of it. I didn't send the storm, and I didn't drain his accounts, and I didn't put a woman in his ear. He did all of that himself, for years, before I ever got on a plane. He paused. I want you to hear that plainly, because in an hour, you're going to try to make this my doing, so you don't have to feel it. It isn't my doing. Then what is? Coming back, he said it simply. I came back. That part is mine. The printer stopped. In the sudden quiet, his next words were almost too soft. I knew where you were. I've known for a long time. His jaw worked once. Not tonight known. Long known. I knew the name of this place before it had your husband's name on the window. I knew the street. I knew which morning you married him. He let that sit. I didn't do anything with it. I want you to understand that too. I didn't call. I didn't write. I didn't stand across the street. I told myself that if you were happy, knowing would be enough, and I'd never once make you carry it. Ayla's hand rose to the stem of her glasses and stopped halfway and came back down. She made it come back down. So, what changed? I stopped believing you were happy. He turned then, finally, and looked at her, and there was nothing performed in it. No angle. Just a man saying a thing that cost him. That's the whole of it, Ayla. I didn't come to save you. I didn't come to buy you. I came because I couldn't sit on the other side of the world one more year not knowing if you were all right. I came to see it with my own eyes. Whatever you needed after that, a check, a stranger, nothing at all, I was going to give you, and then go. The stranger was going to be enough for me. I planned on the stranger. The rain filled the space where the answer should have been. She had braced for a lie. She had spent the whole night with a hand on the door of a lie, ready to catch it, ready to name it, and he'd handed her the truth instead, and the truth was worse. A lie she could have thrown back at him. This she had to hold. You watched me, she said. Her voice came out level, and it surprised her. For years, you knew my address and my wedding and my restaurant, and you stood on the other side of the world and let me marry a man who was robbing me, and you called that a gift. I called it staying out of your life. You don't get to name it that. The level went out of her voice now, not into shouting, into something colder. When you keep watch on a person and never let them know, you're not protecting them, you're keeping them in a drawer to look at when you feel like it. He took that. He didn't flinch, and he didn't argue, and he took it, which was somehow the most Ji-hoon thing he could have done, and it made her angrier. You had 100 nights to knock on my door, she said. You waited for the one night I had nothing left to lose. And now you stand in the wreck of my life and tell me you didn't build it, like a man who lit no match standing in the ashes explaining he only carried the gasoline. I didn't carry I know you didn't. She cut him off, and her breath was tight now, and she made herself slow it. That's what makes it unbearable. You didn't do a single thing. You just knew. For years you just knew, and you did nothing, and you told yourself nothing was mercy. Over at the table, a chair scraped. Daniel signed something with a flourish, the way he signed everything, and the gray suit lawyer slid it away and set another in its place without looking up. Ji-hoon lowered his voice further. I'm not going to defend it. You're right about all of it. I only wanted you to hear it from me before you heard it some other way, because there's more of it coming, and I didn't want the first true thing I told you in 7 years to be one you had to dig out of a document. More of it coming. She looked at him. What does that mean? Not tonight. Not tonight. He shook his head. Once. Tonight, you're standing up on nothing. I'm not going to put more weight on you at the exact moment you can't set it down. He glanced at the table. Sign nothing yourself. Read nothing tonight. Whatever they slide toward you, you don't touch. Do you understand? Not one page tonight has your name near it. That was on purpose. She heard the shape of a promise inside a warning, and she didn't trust either one. But she filed it, the way she'd filed Daniel's pause and Daniel's passport into later. Chef. The gray suit lawyer was standing now, addressing her across the empty room. We're through the operative documents. The transfer executes on the buyer's countersignature. It's done, functionally, in about 4 minutes. A pause. You should know that as of that signature, this business, the lease on this space, the fixtures, and the collateral instrument attached to the loan all leave Mr. Mercer's control. Every part of it. Ayla knew exactly what the collateral instrument was. It was a house on Fenwick Street, with her mother's kitchen tile and her mother's back step, and the handprint she'd pressed into the walk at 6 years old. Who holds the collateral, she said, when he signs? The purchaser, the lawyer said, and did not look at Ji-hoon, and did not need to. So there it was. In 4 minutes, the house would stop being Daniel's leash and start being Ji-hoon's. Ayla stood very still and understood that she had spent the whole night thinking she was watching a rescue, and she had actually been watching a handoff, one man's fist opening so another man's could close, and the thing being handed was her. Daniel signed the last of his pages and stood and stretched like a man who'd finished mowing a lawn. He looked over at Ayla with the old lazy contempt already warming back up now that money had made him safe. See, he said, I told you it'd work out. You'll land somewhere. You always land. He shrugged his blazer straight. Real estate's better than marriage anyway. Cleaner exit. Ayla didn't answer him. She had stopped, somewhere in the last hour, being a person Daniel could reach. He picked up his phone, already texting. Vanessa, she knew, without needing to know, and walked toward the door, and stopped, and turned back for one more, because he could never leave a room without leaving a wound. For the record, he said, the recipes were the restaurant, and the restaurant's his now. He smiled his media smile. So whatever you cook next, chef, you're starting from nothing. The door let in a gust of wet air, and then closed behind him. Through the glass, she watched him get into the car that had waited all night. Ji-hoon's car, the one with the still driver, and then catch himself, laugh, and step back out into the rain to find a cab. Even his exit was borrowed and wrong. The lawyers were packing. Ji-hoon had not moved from the window. He was watching her the way you watch a pot you can't afford to let catch. There's a hotel, he said, 2 blocks up, quiet. I keep a floor of it. You'd have the whole floor, no one on it, no one knowing your name, a lock only you hold, a door nobody opens. He didn't step toward her. You've had the worst night of your life. You shouldn't spend what's left of it deciding anything. Take the room, sleep. Hate me in the morning with a clear head. It was, she would think later, the kindest thing anyone had offered her in months, and it was still a door someone else held open, and she was done walking through doors held open by men. No. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected it, and grieved it anyway. Ayla, you lost the right to worry about where I sleep. She said it without heat now, which was how she knew she meant it. 7 years ago, on a night you decided was mercy. You don't get it back by buying the roof. I'm not trying to. I know what you're trying to do. She pulled the tie of her apron loose and looped it over her head and folded it once, small, the way she folded it every night, and set it on the pass. Her hands were steady. She was almost proud of how steady. That's the problem, Ji-hoon. You're always trying to do something for me from a distance you chose. A gift, a floor, a stranger. Even now, even standing right here, you're still standing across the street. Behind her, a case snapped shut. The gray suit lawyer said something about the morning, about signatures, about a meeting, and Ayla said, not tonight, in the exact tone Ji-hoon had used, and didn't turn around to see if it landed. She got her coat from the hook by the back, the plain gray wool, and under it the charcoal chef's jacket she'd worn since noon, and she pulled it on and buttoned it against the cold that was coming when she stepped out. Ji-hoon watched every button. "Where will you go?" he said. Quiet. No claim in it now. Just the question, stripped down to the bone of what it had always been. Somewhere you don't hold the key. She got her phone. She got her knife roll from the office shelf without looking at the man in the gray suit, because those knives were hers. Carbon steel, honed that morning by her own hand, and they were the one thing in the building no lawyer could reassign. Naomi's. At the sound of her name, Naomi came through the swinging door at last, head wrap still on, and read the whole room in a breath, the way she read a broken sauce. What split it, how far gone, whether it could be brought back. She crossed the floor and took the knife roll out of Ayla's hands without asking, which was how Naomi said things, and hitched it under her scarred arm. "Couch is made up," Naomi said. "Kettle's fast." She looked once, hard, at Ji-hoon, the look of a woman logging a face she intended to remember. Then she put her free hand flat between Ayla's shoulder blades and turned her toward the door. Ayla stopped once, at the threshold, and looked back at the man standing alone in the middle of the restaurant he now owned and did not want. The candle on table 12 was still burning. The ring was still there beside it, small and gold and finished, catching the flame. "You should blow that out," she said. "Before you leave, it'll burn down to nothing and mark the wood." Then she stepped out into the rain, and Naomi pulled the door shut, and the last thing Ji-hoon saw through the glass was the two women crossing the empty street together, shoulder to shoulder, one carrying the other's knives. He stood there a long time. Then he walked to table 12 and looked at the ring and did not touch it. He leaned down and blew out the candle himself. Ayla was awake before the kettle. She lay on Naomi's couch with the wool coat still buttoned to her throat, the knife roll on the floor within reach of her hand, and she counted the water stains on the ceiling until there were no more left to count. Then she sat up. 6 o'clock. The city outside the window was gray and rinsed and quiet, the way it always was after a storm burned itself out overnight. She folded the blanket into a square and set it on the arm of the couch. Naomi's apartment smelled of coffee gone cold and the mint she kept on the sill. On the counter, a note in Naomi's blocky hand. "Woke you at 5, you didn't budge. Kettle's on the left burner. Don't do anything stupid before I'm dressed." Ayla was already lacing her boots. She told herself it was about the knives, the carbon steel, sharpened by her own hand yesterday morning, in the roll Naomi had carried across the street. Except the knives were here, on the floor, and she was lacing her boots to go back to the place she had walked out of. So it was not about the knives. It was about 22 people who would show up at 10 for prep, and find the locks the same, and the owner a stranger, and no one to tell them what came next. That was hers to do. Whatever else had been taken, that was still hers. Naomi came out of the bedroom pulling her head wrap straight, took one look at the boots, and did not argue. "You eat first." "I'm not hungry." "You eat first," Naomi said again, and put a heel of bread and a boiled egg in Ayla's hand. And Ayla ate standing up, because it was faster than the fight. They walked back the way they had come. The gutter Marcus had flagged the day before still ran with runoff, the water clean now, catching the low sun. Ayla carried the knife roll under her arm. 2 blocks. She had done this walk 10,000 times and never once counted the steps, and this morning she counted every one. The front of the restaurant looked the same. That was the first wrong thing. The name over the door, the name that was no longer Daniel's and had never been hers, still hung in its brass letters, catching light. She had expected it to look different. Buildings should look different when they change hands in the dark. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open and stopped one step inside. They were all there. Not the lawyers, her people, the whole line. Marcus, by the host stand with his jacket half-zipped. The 2 dishwashers, the garde-manger, the grill cook, both servers from last night, still in yesterday's clothes, because someone had told them to come, and they had come. The pastry girl, sitting on the edge of a chair with her knees together, 20-some faces turning toward the door as it opened, and every one of them looking at Ayla the way a room looks at the one person who is supposed to know what to do. Behind them, at the sixth top on the banquette where the lawyers had built their base the night before, the base was built again. Laptop, the portable printer, a short stack of pages. The woman in the gray suit stood with her hands folded, 2 others beside her. And Ji-hoon, standing apart from all of them, near table 12, in the same charcoal suit, watching the door. The candle was gone from table 12. The ring was gone too. Ayla's eye went to the white cloth where she had left it, and there was nothing there but the cloth, smoothed flat. Chef. It was Marcus who said it. His voice cracked on the one word. They wouldn't tell us anything. They said wait for you. The room exhaled toward her. She felt it land on her shoulders. She set the knife roll down on the host stand. Slowly. She needed both hands empty, and she needed the 3 seconds it bought her. Then she straightened and looked at them. All of them. One pass. The way she looked at the line before service. Nobody's fired, she said. Nobody's losing a shift. Hear that first. The pastry girl's shoulders came down an inch. Somebody let out a breath that had been held too long. The restaurant sold last night, Ayla said. Plain. No softening it, because they would smell the softening. Mr. Mercer sold it. It's under new ownership as of this morning. Your jobs are the same. Your pay is the same. Prep is at 10, like always. She paused. I'll know more by then. Go get coffee. Marcus, put the machines on. I need the room for 10 minutes. They didn't move at first. Then Naomi stepped past Ayla into the middle of them, clapped her hands once, said, You heard the chef, go, go, and the room broke apart the way it always did when Naomi moved through it. They filed toward the kitchen. Marcus looked back once at Ayla, and she gave him the nod that meant, I've got it. Even though she did not have it, and he went. Then it was the lawyers, and Ji-hoon, and her. The woman in the gray suit stepped forward. She had a single page in her hand, face up, and she held it the way you hold something you have been instructed to deliver by hand. Ms. Serena. She had used Not? Mercer. Ayla noticed. There's a document for you. Mr. Kang asked that you receive it before the staff meeting, not after. Ayla did not take it. What is it? Ji-hoon answered from where he stood. Read it and you'll know. I'm asking you. He came a few steps closer, stopping short of the table, his hands loose at his sides. The business transferred to me last night. All of it. Everything Daniel signed away. A beat. This morning it transfers again. The lawyer laid the page on the nearest table so Ayla wouldn't have to reach for it. Ayla looked at it without picking it up. She could read enough upside down. Her own name in the body of it, printed, more than once. Words she knew from 6 months of watching Daniel's paperwork and pretending not to. Conveyance, grantee, in full, free and clear. Her name where the owner's name goes. You're giving it to me, she said. Yes, the lease, the name, the equipment. Her voice was very level. It cost her to keep it there. The house on Fenwick. Everything, Ji-hoon said. Outright. No lien held back, no share kept. It reads that the property is yours, and no part of it answers to me. The gray suit lawyer added, quietly, It's structured clean, Miss Serena. There's no instrument that gives Mr. Kang any interest or control. We can walk you through it line by line. Ayla put her fingertips on the edge of the table, not on the page, on the wood beside it. She was aware of her own heartbeat, which she was never aware of, and of the fact that her hands wanted to shake and were not going to be allowed to. Somewhere behind the kitchen door, a machine hummed on. The smell of coffee started to reach the dining room. Ordinary morning, everywhere but here. No, she said. Ji-hoon didn't move. The lawyer's folded hands tightened a fraction. No what? He said. Careful. No, I'm not signing it. No, I'm not taking it. She lifted her eyes from the page to his face. You can't hand me a building like a plate you sent back. It's not a 7 years. The number came out sharp and she let it. 7 years of nothing. Not a letter, not a call, not one line to say you were alive. You told me that last night yourself. You knew where I was the whole time, and you left me in a drawer. Her hand pressed flat on the wood. And now you walk in with a folder, and you want to buy back 7 years with square footage. I don't want to buy anything back. Then what is this? She jerked her chin at the page without looking at it. Because from here, it looks exactly like a man writing a check to feel clean. That landed. She saw it land, a small tightening at the jaw, the scar over his eyebrow going still. He absorbed it the way he absorbed everything, without flinching, which was its own kind of maddening. If I keep any part of it, he said slowly, you spend the rest of your life owned. I know that. That's why there's nothing held back. Read it. There's no leash in it. I don't need to read it to know what it does to me. Ayla's throat worked. You think the leash is in the paper. The leash is what? The gift. A man vanishes for 7 years and comes back and drops a fortune on the counter. And every day I stand in this room, I'm standing in something you gave me. Every plate I sent it out because you decided one night that you wanted to fix me. She shook her head, once. That's not mine. That's a monument to you with my name on the deed. The lawyer looked, briefly, at Ji-hoon and then studied the floor. I built this, Ayla said, and her voice dropped, which was worse than if she had raised it. I built it with recipes I wrote, and a menu I set, and a line I hired, one by one, and it was never in my name for a single day of it. First it was his. She pointed, without looking, toward the office where Daniel had run last night. Now you want it to be yours turned mine, which is just his, all over again wearing a nicer coat. Handed to me, assigned to me, somebody else's signature making me an owner. She pulled her hand off the table. I have never once owned the thing I made, and you're standing there thinking you just fixed that. You just did it again. Ewan. Silence in the dining room. The coffee machine hissed and cut off. Ji-hoon looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower than the lawyers could comfortably hear. Then what do you want me to do with it? I don't know yet. It was the truest thing she'd said, but not this. Not a page that makes me grateful to you before I've had coffee. She stepped back from the table. The page stayed where it was, face up, her name printed across it, meaning nothing because she would not touch it. And there it was, the bottom of it, the full weight, arriving all at once, the way the cold arrives after you've stopped moving. No marriage. She'd left it on this cloth last night. No house of her own to go to. She'd slept on Naomi's couch. No restaurant. She'd never had one. The truth of that was 7 years old, and she'd only just let herself feel it. And now a rescue that felt like a cage, offered by the one person whose rescue she could not take. She stood in the middle of the room she had built with her own 2 hands, and owned nothing in it. Not the ovens, not the name over the door, not the ring on the cloth, not even the ground to say no from, because the only ground on offer was his to give. Ms. Serena. The gray suit lawyer, gentle, trying to open a door. You don't have to decide today. The document holds. If you'd rather we hold it in escrow while you hold it wherever you want. Ayla's eyes were dry and burning. I'm not putting my name to something somebody handed me. Not again. I've done that twice now, and both times it was a rope. Ji-hoon took one more step and stopped, because she looked at him and he stopped. Ayla, just the name. He had said it that way last night too, at the table, when she first turned and saw him. It had undone something in her then. She would not let it now. "You said there was more coming," she said. "Last night, you told me not to sign anything, not to read anything, because none of the pages had my name near them, and that was on purpose. Now here's a page with my name all over it. So which is it? Am I supposed to keep away from the paper, or am I supposed to sign the paper?" His jaw moved. For the first time since he'd walked into her restaurant 12 hours ago, he looked like a man who did not have the next move ready. "That paper is different," he said. "Every paper is different, right up until it owns you." The kitchen door swung, and Naomi leaned through it, read the room in half a second the way she read everything, and held there in the gap. Ayla lifted 2 fingers, the same signal as last night. "Not yet. Stay." Naomi stayed. Ji-hoon reached inside his jacket. Not for the passport Daniel had carried. A different motion, slower. The motion of a man deciding whether to open a thing he'd carried a long way. Ayla watched his hand. Whatever it was, it did not come out. He left it where it was, and let his hand drop. "There's a reason it's yours," he said finally. "Not a whim, not a check. A reason with your name on it, long before mine." His eyes held hers. "I was going to show you when you were ready to hear it. You're not ready." "Don't tell me when I'm ready." Her voice shook, once, and she hated it, and pushed through it. 7 years you decided what I was ready for. You decided I was better off not knowing you were out there. You decided last night I needed saving before you'd even heard me say a word. Stop deciding for me. If there's a reason, then it's mine to hear or not hear, not yours to time. He went quiet. The whole room went quiet. 20 feet away, behind the swinging door, she could feel her people listening, without meaning to, the way a kitchen always hears everything. "You're right," Ji-hoon said. It stopped her. She had braced for the counter, the reasonable voice, "If you'd only—" Not agreement. "You're right," he said again, and looked at the lawyer, and something passed between them that Ayla could not read. "Put the transfer away. Don't file it. Don't push it on her." Back to Ayla. "It stays drawn up. It doesn't move an inch until you say the word, and if you never say it, it dies in a drawer. Yours or nobody's." The lawyer picked the page up off the table. Ayla watched her own name lift away and disappear into a folder. She should have felt something ease. She didn't. The relief didn't come because the ground hadn't come with it. She'd refused the only floor on offer, and now she was standing on nothing, and she could feel every inch of the nothing. She had said no from the strongest place she had, and the strongest place she had was still just Naomi's couch and a roll of knives. "Prep's at 10, she said, because it was the only true and solid thing in the room. "I have people to talk to." Ayla, Ji-hoon's voice caught her at the turn. "Before 10, 2 minutes. There's something you have to see, and after you've seen it, you can throw it in the street if you want. But you have to see it first." She stood with her back half to him, the knife roll waiting on the host stand, her people waiting behind the door, the folder with her stolen name inside it waiting in a lawyer's hands. "What is it?" she said, not turning. He said, "It's yours. It always was, longer than any of them." And he reached into his jacket again, and this time his hand came out with it. It was a notebook, small, spiral-bound, the cover soft at the corners from being carried. Ayla knew it before her eyes finished the shape of it. She had bought it for $2 at a corner store 7 years ago, and she had filled it with a handwriting that was younger than the one she used now. Ji-hoon held it flat on his palm and did not open it. "You left it," he said, "in the apartment. The morning you didn't come back." She kept her hands at her sides. Her fingers wanted the strap of the knife roll on the host stand. She let them want it. "You kept a $2 notebook for 7 years. I kept it in a drawer for 6 of them," he said. "I read it in the 7th. He set it on the table, near the folder the lawyer had closed, and turned it so the cover faced her. There were rubber bands where the spiral had bent. There was a coffee ring she remembered making. She did not touch it yet. "Open it," he said. "Or don't. It's yours either way." Naomi had come 2 steps out of the kitchen. Ayla lifted 2 fingers without looking, and Naomi stopped, but this time she didn't go back. Ayla opened the notebook. The first page was a menu, not a real one. A wish, written in a girl's careful print, with prices she'd invented and dishes she couldn't yet afford to test. Short rib, low ring of jus, a single blade of pickled scallion laid across the top. She had drawn a tiny knife next to it. Below the menu, in the same hand, was a floor plan. 12 tables. A pass by the window. A name at the top she had crossed out and rewritten 4 times before she landed on one. Serena. She had drawn this restaurant, years before Daniel, years before the lease with his name on it, before the magazine spread, before the mortgage on Fenwick Street. She had drawn the room she was standing in now, and she had given it her own name, and she had forgotten she'd ever done it. Her hand went to the glasses. She caught it halfway and brought it down. She turned the page. There was a note in the margin, dated, in her own younger print. Someday, underlined twice. She remembered writing it in a kitchen the size of a closet, on a night a man had eaten what she cooked, and said nothing for a full minute. She had thought the silence meant she'd failed. She hadn't understood yet that some things go quiet when they land. "You read all of it," she said, not a question. "Every page." Zihoon's voice stayed level. "I read the note. I knew the room, then I saw a magazine with his face in it, and your food on the plate, and the caption gave the recipe to him. He let that sit. That's when I came back. Not for you, to be sure it was really yours before I did anything I couldn't undo." "There's more," Jihoon said. The gray-suited lawyer stepped to the banquette and turned the laptop toward Ayla. She did not come closer, so the lawyer read it plainly, the way you read a receipt. "Before the purchase, we ran the operating file," the lawyer said. "The one Mr. Mercer handed over last night. It answered some questions." "What questions?" "Who opened this restaurant?" The lawyer clicked once. The initial capital came through an account in your name. Statements, deposits, a wire that cleared the build-out. You financed it. The paperwork was later restructured so you weren't listed as a partner. That restructuring happened after the money moved. Ayla stood very still. The room she had drawn at 24 hummed around her. "There's a menu on file with the investors," the lawyer went on. "Dated. 3 dishes. The short rib is one of them. The dates on that menu are earlier than any document with Mr. Mercer's name on the concept. And there are vendor contracts. The fish, the produce, the linen, signed by you. Not by him." A pause. "He used your recipes and your money to raise capital, and he never made you an owner." The words went in and did not shout. That was the thing about them. They sat down inside her, quiet, and rearranged the furniture. "So the property isn't a gift," Ayla said. She was working it out as she said it. "It's not charity." "No," Jihoon said. "It's restitution." "It was always yours," he said. "I didn't buy you a restaurant. I bought back the paper that said it wasn't." She closed the notebook. She kept her hand flat on the cover. "That's why you told me not to sign anything last night," she said. "You didn't want my name near a page until you could prove my name was already on the older ones." "I wanted the record clean," he said, "so no one could ever say a man gave this to you. The record says you built it and someone took the deed." Naomi made a sound in the kitchen doorway, low, almost a laugh, almost not. Marcus had drifted in behind her, and a second dishwasher, and the pastry girl, and they were not pretending to be busy anymore. "There's one more thing," Naomi said. She crossed to the pass and reached under the low shelf where the reservation binder lived, and she pulled out a second folder, fat with paper. "We started keeping copies 6 months back, Every time you fixed a menu, every prep sheet in your writing, every vendor sheet you signed. She set it down next to the notebook. We didn't know what it was for. We just knew he was the kind of man who erases people, and I've been erased before. She looked at Ayla. So we kept the proof in a drawer he never opened. Ayla put her hand flat on the folder. The staff had been building her case in the dark, one photocopy at a time, on the chance she'd need it. She hadn't asked. They'd done it anyway. You could have lost your jobs, she said. We were going to lose them anyway, Naomi said. Figured we'd lose them on purpose. Then the front door opened. Daniel came in fast, coat half off one shoulder, and Vanessa was a step behind him, heels loud on the wood, tote bag swinging. He was already talking before the door shut. There's a problem with the wire, he said. He said it to the room, to anyone. The money's not clearing. Half of there's a hold on it. Somebody put a hold on it. His eyes found Ji-hoon. You, release it. I don't hold your money, Ji-hoon said. The auditor does. Daniel stopped. What auditor? The gray-suited lawyer answered without heat. The independent audit triggered on transfer. Standard when a business changes hands at 3 times valuation. It flagged the operating file you provided. She turned a page on the table so it faced him, though he was too far to read it and didn't come closer. Undisclosed debt. A management services fee paid every last Friday to a vendor of record that doesn't perform any services. Payroll shorted while those payments cleared, and 2 documents in the file that were altered after signing. Altered? Daniel's voice cracked up half a step. You handed them to us yourself, the lawyer said. Last night, to close the sale faster. The alterations are in your possession and in your handwriting. Until the audit clears, a portion of the proceeds is frozen. That's not my decision. That's the flag. Ayla watched Daniel's face do the arithmetic and come up short. The hesitation she'd filed away, his hand stopping over the binder, had a home now. The vendor was Vanessa, Ayla said. Not loud. She wanted to see it land. It landed. Daniel didn't deny it. He turned to Vanessa the way a man turns to the one person still on his side, and Vanessa was looking at the tote bag on her own shoulder, as if checking she still had it. How much is frozen? Vanessa said, to the lawyer, not to Daniel. A portion, pending the audit. How long? Months. Possibly longer if it goes to the state. Vanessa nodded once, the way you nod at a flight that's been canceled. She shifted the bag higher on her shoulder. Vanessa, Daniel said. I wanted the name, she said. She said it to the room, plain, almost bored. The restaurant, the press list, the contacts. That was the plan. The brand travels. We relaunch somewhere warm. I run the front. She looked at him now, and there was nothing cruel in it, which was worse. There's no brand if the name goes back to her and the money's in a freezer. There's nothing to run. We had a name and a wire, she said. Now there's neither. She turned toward the door. Her red soles flashed once. Don't call the Beverly account. It's mine. She left. The door took a moment to close behind her, and in that moment, nobody in the room moved to help it. Daniel stood in the middle of the floor that had never been his. He looked at Ayla. Whatever he was reaching for, the old cruelty, the old sighs, he couldn't find the weight of it. You'll regret this, he tried. I financed it, Ayla said. I drew it. I named it. You signed a page. She picked up the notebook and held it against her chest, both hands. The only thing you ever owned was the lie, and you just sold it to a man who framed it and hung it on the wall as evidence. He opened his mouth. The gray-suited lawyer said, without looking up, You'll want counsel, Mr. Mercer. There's a number on the card by the door. And that, more than anything Ayla could have said, moved him. He took the card. He didn't read it. He went out into the morning, and this time he found the right cab on the first try, and the room was quiet in a way it had not been quiet in years. Ayla set the notebook down on the pass. She turned to the lawyers. "The transfer," she said. "The one you put in the drawer." The gray-suited lawyer waited. "I'll take it, on my terms." Ji-hoon didn't move toward her. He stood where he was, by the window table, and let her have the floor she was standing on. "No hidden stake," Ayla said. "Not yours, not anyone's. The audit stays independent. I don't get to end it early, and neither do you. Every job stays. Marcus, the line, the front, all of it, at the wage they're on, starting today." She was counting on her fingers without meaning to, the way she plated. "And a share of the profit goes out, a school. For women who get kept out of kitchens like this one keeps them out. Cooks who financed something and never got their name on it." She looked at Ji-hoon. "You don't sit on the board. You don't advise. You don't walk in on a Friday to see how it's going." She waited for the negotiation. There was always a negotiation. "Yes," Ji-hoon said, "to all of it. No counter, no clause." He said yes the way a man says it when he's already decided the other person is right and has been waiting for permission to admit it. And that was the thing she had not been able to get from anyone in 7 years. Not a gift, not a rescue, but a man hearing her set the terms and stepping back from the table. She saw it then, that he knew whose kitchen it was. The lawyer opened the folder. Ayla read every line this time, slowly, and where her name appeared she let it appear, and she signed. That night they reopened. Not for the public, for the 22. Ayla cooked for her own staff, and Naomi worked the pass beside her, and the pastry girl ran plates, and Marcus sat down at a table for the first time in his life and let someone bring him food. Ji-hoon came in a suit and took the last table by the window, the one he'd booked under a shell company on the worst night of the storm, and he ordered nothing, because tonight the kitchen decided. Before service, Ayla went out front with a rag and worked the last letters of Daniel's surname off the glass where the sign painter had left the outline. She wrote one word in its place, by hand, in white. Serena. The dish she sent to the window table was the old one. Short rib, low ring of jus, but there was a blade of something green across the top that wasn't scallion. Sharper, brighter, a herb she'd never had the nerve to put next to it at 24. Ji-hoon looked at it a long time before he lifted the fork. "It's not the same," he said. No. She had come out of the kitchen to say it herself, the way she'd come out that first night, except her hands were steady now. A recipe holds a memory. That's what it's for. But you don't have to live inside the memory to keep it. She nodded at the plate. One new thing, so it remembers where it came from without being stuck there. He ate. He set the fork down. He pressed 2 fingers to his mouth, the same gesture from the first night, and this time, she let herself watch it all the way through. "You didn't give me a restaurant, Ji-hoon," she said. The room had gone quiet around them. The staff had learned already when to disappear. "You gave me back the name they tried to erase." She held his eyes. "But my heart is going to have to be won all over again." He nodded. He didn't reach for her hand. He understood the terms of that, too. The months moved the way good months do, without announcing themselves. Serena filled its 12 tables, and then filled a wait list. The audit closed. What it recovered went where Ayla said it would. In the spring, the school took its first 6 students. Women who could cook and had never been let past the sink. Women who had financed men's dreams and watched their own names get sanded off glass. Naomi taught 2 nights a week and pretended to complain about it. Ji-hoon did something quieter, and Ayla only learned the shape of it slowly. The men who'd made him useful to people like Daniel, the ones who moved money through shell vendors and held paper over other people's houses. He unwound himself from them, one loosened knot at a time, so that being near her cost her nothing. He didn't tell her he was doing it. She heard it, the way you hear weather change, in the pressure before the fact. He never bought his way back in. He never sent a car. On the night the school's first 6 students cooked their own first service, he came to the door and stood on the sidewalk under the new white letters, and he didn't come in until she saw him. "Can I take you home?" he asked, the old question, the one he'd asked in a small apartment 7 years ago, before he disappeared and made the question a wound. Ayla looked at him from inside the room she had drawn at 24, and lost and taken back. She thought about the drawer he'd kept the notebook in, and the year he'd finally opened it, and the distance he'd learned, too late, to close. "You can walk beside me," she said. She turned the last light off herself. She locked the door with the key that was hers now, on paper old and new, and she stepped out under her own name, and he fell into step on her left, not ahead, not behind, beside her, this time, the whole way. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen. The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. See you there. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever poured your whole craft into something, only to watch someone else put their name on it? When the truth about who really built your life finally surfaced, did you have the courage to take your name back? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, betrayal, and hidden truth, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.